Welcome in College Baseball Central fans. Back on the best coast, soon to be the second coast. ACC Conference. Got Monty and Micah. How are we doing today, guys?
I'm living the dream, I
I'm
got to
good.
spend the day at the ballpark, so I can't complain. Monty, how are you?
I am tired. It was a fun weekend, but a tiring one, and I get to have oral dental surgery tomorrow morning, so that I can be ready to roll later this week. So yeah, just trying to get that in between baseball games.
Monty, I got
How was
excited
that?
for a second. I thought you were going to be in Waco to see Oral Roberts. So give me a little
I
tease
got
there.
worried that we were no longer going to be PG the way he paused. I was like, wait, where are we going with this? So I'm glad that your
I
mouth will
was
be
trying.
feeling better after.
Yeah, I was trying to get something set up at the same time, so that might have been why I paused, just to make sure what I was doing was right. So yeah.
I guess before we break down the teams, Micah obviously rocking the East Tennessee State hat. Monty, you going with some Louisville red there, or what's the motto behind the red?
Let's go. I actually own that
The
shirt,
jumbo
Monty. Monty, I
shrimp.
wish you would have told me I own that shirt.
That's awesome. So yeah, so obviously I was at the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp Stadium for the inaugural Jacksonville College Classic that just occurred over the weekend, and I saw this shirt, and even though it's a Nike dry fit and kind of expensive, I had to have it. So it's shrimping ain't easy for anyone who's listening on the podcast, because this is also an ACC just means less podcast at the same time that it's a College Baseball Central live show. I'm wearing a Shrimpin' Ain't Easy shirt that Micah apparently also owns, so we could have looked like twins, and then Jake would have looked like a real Jake would have looked like a real buffoon right now.
I'm rocking the Idaho Vandals, so no relation to college baseball whatsoever. Just taking that way out of left field. Not ACC related at all. So we got to mix it up a little bit.
Nick is about to join us. So a little bit of an interesting start here. I know we said we'd start at 8:00. It's a little bit later, but we have some great topics to talk about. Let's just get into it. And when Nick jumps on, we'll just move in seamlessly. So here we go. Did you just remove it when I added it?
No, I didn't touch it, Monty. That wasn't me.
No, that was me when I had to bring up the PowerPoint, so it had to show off a little bit of Liverpool in the background. So shout out to them winning the Carabao Cup final the other day. Anyway, St. Bonaventure, Louisville. We'll start it off with there. Louisville. We know this is they won today during the midweek as well, by the way. So they've won their first 4 games of the year. They're back to 500. Obviously, we're talking about these Friday games here, or these weekend games. The starting pitching continues to do pretty well. On Friday, the offense didn't really get going, but then you can see they really got going. 21 runs in game 2, 15 in game 3, 18 in game 4, and then today against who were they playing? I just scored the game, but they scored
Eastern Kentucky.
Eastern Kentucky, thank you. I scored about 3 games this afternoon, so I was losing track, and they were the early games. So they scored a bunch of runs again today. So they're looking a lot better than they were in the first couple of games. And I want to talk to Micah about it first, because I know Micah's on the Louisville bandwagon. He's a big Louisville guy. What are your thoughts? Is this a big series to get them back on track?
They're back. Louisville's back. Just plain and simple. No, it was definitely promising to see the bats finally get going. The bullpen is obviously still very scary. You look at the quality of opponent. Their St. Bonaventure has 2 wins all year, right? And one is obviously, that Louisville ball club. Eastern Kentucky has 1 win all year. And then this weekend, obviously we'll get to previews later, it's winless Youngstown State. So, this is a definitely get right kind of situation for Louisville. Did remove them from my field of 64, which broke my heart. But, it was Carson Liggett Day, so happy Carson Liggett Day to all that celebrate such an important holiday. But it was nice to see him kind of get going. I mean, I think you saw quality outings for the starting pitching, which obviously was nice. And again, when you're scoring an average of 18 runs in the last 3 games of the series, there's not too much to complain about there.
Yeah, I mean, it really kind of alleviated to a lot of their pitching woes earlier because they really weren't impressive in that first weekend. But Sebastian Gregoria, I mean, he's going to be the Friday night guy. They're going to get 6 innings out of him going forward. I don't think the bats in ACC play are going to score 21, 15, and 18 at the tail end of weekends. But I think the bats are going to be a lot better than they were first weekend. Luke Napleton had just an absolutely monster weekend, going 6 for 11, 3 doubles and a home run with 6 RBIs down at the bottom. And even in his 5 kind of outs, he still took very good quality at bats. But Monty, how do you feel about this Louisville team? Because I got off the bandwagon very, very fast. I know Micah's still on there, but it feels bad. I know they went 3-1, but they don't feel like a quality team like we thought coming into the year.
So I watched them today, and I feel a lot better. And from what I looked at over the weekend, they did a lot of soul searching this weekend. I'm looking at my stats as Nick joins us, and they started a lot of their kids. Lucas Moore is obviously, he's been starting since day one, but that's a freshman. They started playing Matt Klein as the primary catcher. I know we have Napleton in there, but he's been getting in there a lot as DH. They got Zion Rose out there who hit his first Louisville home run. And it really looks like the kids have been looking really good. And some of the older guys like Isaac Humphrey and Ryan McCoy and Logan Beard, those guys have been struggling. And then this weekend they put the kids in and they were looking really good. So Brandon Anderson also got off to, made his debut this past weekend for the season and really had a good weekend as well. I think he played in the three of the games, and he went 5 for 10. But he also hit a monster home run today. So I think they're better than they were obviously week 1. And the other thing I saw is that they're kind of getting back to their identity, which is about running and stringing together hits.
I guess that's kind of all she wrote on Louisville. I think that they're probably going to be 14, I think, for the foreseeable future in my eyes. I know Micah is a little bit higher, but Monty, let's go ahead and get on to that next game here. Just kind of go forward.
Me?
We're not moving on? Oh, I thought that was it. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, it's fine. It's cool. No, I just was, it's fine. Nick, how are you doing? Nick, can you hear me?
We cannot hear
Can
Nick.
Anybody hear me?
Unfortunately,
Nick is.
We can hear you,
today,
Monty.
guys.
Yeah, it's
okay. Okay, good. Yeah, I was just making sure because I was like, all right. Anyway, we're moving on to Pittsburgh.
Monty,
the Pitt Panthers.
Gritsburg, Monty.
Jake, I'm about to push you out, man. Anyway, just kick you out. Anyway. Pittsburgh, they won the weekend again. They played on Monday as well against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. They took 3 of 4. And really, I mean, 1 inning in game 2 against Maryland was a 7-run inning. You take that inning away, and who knows what happens against Maryland. Obviously, you can't just do that. That's not how the game works. So they're 6-1, playing pretty well. My really impressive thing was Ryan Andrade in game 1. They're still stretching him out, but he pitched phenomenal. 1 run, 9 strikeouts, and then Ryan Zuckerman, the freshman, hit 2 home runs in the game, including the walk-off to win it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like from this gritty Pittsburgh team. The competition definitely stepped up a lot this weekend. Washington, while they are winless, they are still Power 5. Maryland's probably the best team that's Pitt's going to play outside of ACC play. And then A&M Corpus Christi at their home. I mean, those are always kind of pesky games. But how about Dom Pompa, the senior? He had 3 doubles, was really, really hot all weekend. He's really the one that kind of shined on me this weekend. And again, the Pitt Panthers are leaving Texas going 3-1, which again, I didn't think that was something that I was going to be saying at the beginning of the year. There's a lot to like about Pitt baseball at this time.
Micah, what are your thoughts?
I'm gonna push back, man. This seems like a mirage. I'm sorry. I don't see it. I mean, like I'm happy for them, but Maine has looked very, very bad to start the season. They got run
Who'd they
ruled.
play?
They got run ruled by Stetson the other day.
Oof.
They lost to Army by 7. Like they did run rule Fordham, so I guess they got that going for them. But they're 1-5. Washington has looked not like the Washington team that made the tournament last year. Maryland looks down from last year as well. I mean, they're not bad by any means, but that's the Pitt loss. Texas A&M Corpus Christi, I mean, if you watched any of the game on Monday, the ballpark kind of speaks for what the investment of that program is. No offense to the Islanders, but let's just call it what it is. That ballpark was about as league it could be in Division I baseball. It's just, I want to think this team is good. And we'll find out this weekend. We'll absolutely find out this weekend. So that's the good thing is I don't have to keep questioning it. But, I mean, tomorrow they've got Youngstown State, who I already talked about, hasn't won a game. In my opinion, they haven't looked overly impressive. I mean, the Washington win was a good win. I mean, it's by no means a bad win. But, you know, it's a part of me is starting to wonder if maybe I'm buying in too much into what you're selling me, Monty.
Okay, so here's the thing. That's the fun of rooting for Pittsburgh, because it probably is a mirage, right? Like you said, that's why it's so fun to jump onto that, because chances are you're not going to have I'm not going to have a chance to be selling anything in a couple of weeks, right? So that's part of the fun of rooting for a team like Pittsburgh is chances are it is a mirage and they are going to come back to earth, but it's fun to root for a gritty underdog, in my opinion. So that's everything Micah said. Absolutely true. Nick, what are your thoughts?
And we cannot hear Nick, unfortunately.
Well, Nick's going to be just here for his good looks then.
Yeah, or his sign language. Nick, how's your sign language? Can you sign language yes for us?
If you're listening on the podcast, he is on the video, but unfortunately, hey, have you tried putting your headset down? Maybe that's what it is. The microphone on the headset on the. Well.
He never does that. It's for some odd reason he never does it.
Anyway,
it's actually his satellite antenna, so that's actually for connection, Monty.
So Nick agrees that Pittsburgh is the greatest team in ACC baseball right now. Anyway,
they would sweep Wake Forest in a 3-game series, according to Nick.
Speaking of Wake Forest, here we go. The Demon Deacons, are they back? I know some people were concerned about the offense, especially following their loss to UNC Greensboro. But they score 14 runs, 9 runs, and 9 runs again in the finale. And dang it, I'm really upset about that typo. That is Dayton. They played all 3 times, not Akron in game 3. This is what happens when you do a slideshow in a rush after driving from Florida to Virginia. I thought I had done pretty well. I obviously had not, and I should have checked them today. But Wake Forest, they're not hitting the home runs. They're focused on, just good fundamental hitting, extra, hitting doubles, getting on base, and it's working a lot better. So, Jake, we'll start with you. What are you thinking about the Wake Forest Demon Deacons?
I'm really kind of buying back into the stock on Wake Forest. They almost needed that kind of everybody gets one moment in their midweek. Josh Harder went out through 6 innings, 1 earned. I know Chase Burns, that a lot of Tennessee fans are saying, hey, this guy's kind of locker room issues, avoid him. I don't really see that, at least early on in the season, from him. I know that Tuesday was kind of an up and down season, or up and down kind of game. The vibes still kind of seem to be high in Wake Forest. That's the one thing that I'm really kind of watching a close eye on, is kind of how the vibes are. And everything from this weekend, you could sit here and say that the bullpen wasn't very good on Sunday. But again, it's early in the season. They're struggling. They're not necessarily struggling. They're just trying to find guys who they can get when they get into ACC play. So I think once that gets in, they're going to get that cleaned up. And again, like we talked about in the preseason, this isn't going to be the same Wake Forest that hits home runs, bangs it around the yard like that. They're going to be more gap to gap, and I think that's what we saw this weekend.
Yeah, apparently that doesn't include Jack Quinet, who hit 3 home runs over the weekend. He hit another one today during their midweek. So he is settling in fairly nicely into a starting role. So he is hitting home runs. Nick Kurtz only, I think, has one on the year, but he's still able to get on base and hit doubles. So I don't have a lot of issues with Wake Forest. I am excited about the Wake Forest Duke series. I'm officially going to that in a couple of weeks. We're going to find out really quickly once Duke gets into conference play how good they are, because they're going to start against Duke at home and facing those pitchers, and then their lineup or facing the Duke pitchers to find out how good their lineup is, and then they're going to go to Virginia and find out how really good their pitchers are against the Virginia lineup. So a lot of fun. Micah?
Well, you forgot about the following weekend, the juggernaut that's the Louisville Cardinals. So I'm a little offended by you just choosing to leave them out. But no, I mean, I think with Wake, it's kind of it's a double-edged sword in my opinion. Like, they look like a top 10 team again. I mean, I'm not questioning whether this team is good, but the expectation was clear-cut number one, and they still don't look like that to me. They don't. Right. I mean, I would even say they're not the number one team in this conference right now from what we've seen. You've mentioned, I think we've seen, just again, based off the quality of opponents that Virginia and Duke have had to face so far this year. There's an argument that, again, my power rankings, I didn't have Wake in my top two. I mean, I don't know for everyone on this pod how you all saw it, but I think I've just seen more, from Virginia and Duke. Again, we'll get to see them early. They also, in between that beautiful sandwich of Duke and Wake is a road game to Coastal in the midweek. So we're going to learn about Wake pretty fast, starting once March rolls around after this weekend. But yeah, at the end of the day, we saw human Chase Burns, and this team still won by 6. So
he's still at 8 Ks in 5 innings.
Exactly.
And only
if that's
up 3,
a bad outing for Chase, I think Wake's going to be just fine.
Yeah. So, by the way, we will be talking about power rankings later in the show, all of our power rankings, but all 3 people that are currently on the show right now, none of us put Wake Forest in our top 3. We all put them at number 4. Everyone else put them in either 2 or 3. So we're the smart ones here. So yeah, it's an interesting situation, but Wake Forest is not really playing anybody, so it's not really the only thing we can do is either go, okay, that's what they're supposed to do, or we're going to complain about their performance. So not much to learn about Wake Forest until they really get going in conference play.
Yeah.
Is Micah Micah? Is Nick going to try and come back?
He is. He's trying to get his mic all squared away. So we may never see Nick again. This might be, if I want to pour one out for Nick real quick, but
yeah, Jake, you had something to say?
I was just going to say, I still feel like Wake's the number 1 team. What we've seen from Hartle, Burns, and Massey, I don't think anybody, not even Arkansas, could touch that front line rotation. Yeah, the opponents haven't been great. They've kind of slept-walked through it, but again, I think they're playing with a lot of stuff in the back end of the bullpen and stuff like that, and pitch recognition. So I think take everything with this Wake team almost with a grain of salt until we get into ACC play. Because I think we saw more of the same last year with LSU, where they kind of were sleepwalking through a lot of their early games.
And Wake Forest is sleepwalking on the weekend and doing fine. Yes, they dropped the midweek at UNC Greensboro, but they're still winning games on the weekend right now. So anyway, we're going to move along to the Noah's Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.
Monty, go ahead and get it out of the way. The kind of the elephant in the room.
Can I just correct the thing real quick, just so that way, again, there's another typo on the sheet. You had the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets sweeping the weekend. Just wanted to mention that for our wonderful listeners.
I did have the score correct, but the wrong.
Correct to being incorrect.
Order. So it was game 11-4 in favor of Cornell over Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech takes 2 of 3, and Jake wants me to get the elephant out of the room, but we're not going to do that yet. Peyton Green. Drew Burris hit 4 home runs today, just shortly before this show is going on, broke a school record. He is the nation's leader. That's 9 home runs in 8 games. He also has 5 doubles. He's unreal. And this morning I tweeted out I talked about a debate between him and Daniel Cuvée, the third baseman for Miami, and it's Cuvier's move now tomorrow night. So if you want to keep up with with being close to Drew Burress, we need to see 3 or 4 home runs tomorrow night, Drew, from you in in Miami. So yeah, let's get started. Micah, I know you've got some pretty strong opinions about this Georgia Tech team, and you're not very impressed with them.
Well, first off, I want to be very clear. It's not that I'm not impressed with Georgia Tech. Similar to what I said about, Pitt, beating Cornell and Radford means absolutely nothing to me. I'm just being transparent. As someone that loves mid-major baseball, it's kind of not my entire livelihood, but big part of my livelihood, especially this time of year. I'm glad that they're taking care of business. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what matters. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Today was the most impressive. Just they got the pitching. I mean, again, we can talk about how great Drew Burress is over and over again, but even without him, the offense was still clicking. Like, you take away his home runs, they still win 4-0, 5-0, something like that. So, they still get it done without him in tonight's game. And the midweek has almost been where I've been most impressed, like going on the road to Georgia Southern and taking, the game there last Tuesday. If they were undefeated right now, I know it's so unfair because again, it's all about series, right? It's not about taking, sweeps are obviously nice, but they're not the end all be all. But Cornell's not a good baseball team. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off right now. I mean, seeing that concerns me because, when you get to ACC play, you can't play like that. And, I mean, even in the opening game, the 9-6 win, I'm just going to be honest, you play half the ACC like that, you probably drop it. So it's a kind of again, same thing with Radford. The Saturday and Sunday games were a little bit more close than they probably should have been for the hype that we're seeing this Georgia Tech team receive. That being said, I'm not going to lie. If Noah's watching and or listening, Noah, I just want to do my apology now. Leaving Georgia Tech off even my first 4 out or my next 4 out of the bracketology is probably the wrong move. Right now, Georgia Tech has looked better than Louisville, but I'm letting my heart tell me things that my brain and my eyes want to see. Or are seeing, excuse me. So to be very clear, Georgia Tech fans, we actually have a lot that follow us on our page. I'm sorry for doubting Georgia Tech, but maybe that's best for you. I doubted them in football in the fall, and they actually had a pretty good year. So maybe that should just be my new thing. It's just Georgia Tech hater. But
yeah, I was going to say, Georgia Tech fans don't. He's not sorry. He's not even a little bit sorry.
I mean, I had to point out you had them sweeping Cornell. Clearly, I hate them. I was like, oh, he forgot something. Let me talk bad about Georgia Tech.
Jake, what do you think? Do you agree with Micah, or do you feel differently?
I kind of feel a little bit differently about him. I mean, obviously Cornell is not the class of the Ivy. I think the only two there are Pitt and Columbia, but Radford isn't abysmally bad. I mean, they blew out Lemoyne in their 2 games, but we're getting sidetracked here. I think the scary Terry move out of the Friday night with Terry Bussey, obviously last week started on Friday, pitched really, really good. Does he kind of slide into that Sunday role where Mason Patel's really, really struggled through those first 2 games? I mean, 4 innings, 4 runs, isn't really going to get it cut in ACC play. But again, Drew Burress, the kid is an absolute monster. He's 5'8", and he generates power like he's 6'6", 240 with where he hits the ball. Just a violent, very quick swing. So, I mean, I think that's something that as we move into ACC play and the pitching kind of steps up, yeah, he's not going to hit 4 or 5 home runs in a game, but I think the power is still going to be there when they get into ACC play, which again, Monty, we talked about it in preseason. How are these freshmen going to react? Drew Burress alone is indicating that's going to be a good freshman class.
Yeah, and 2 things that I thought were really interesting, because even in past years, Georgia Tech pitching has struggled mightily in non-conference play. Doesn't matter how bad the team they were playing was, but the way Cameron Hill and Aiden Finateri have pitched so far this season is very, very. It looks good. That gives you some hope that they have finally figured out some pitching. Obviously, they've got some major issues elsewhere, and but if those guys continue to pitch well, that helps a a lot. So we'll see about Tech right now. TBD. So
I think they're kind of in that pick category where we all want them to succeed, but the returns we need to kind of pump the brakes on a little bit. But
So
they're wagon alert.
Question for you guys. I don't know how we wanted to preface previewing upcoming weekend series. I don't necessarily want to deep dive it, but I think because of what's happening this weekend with clean old fashioned hate between Georgia Tech and Georgia this weekend, both teams are off to incredible starts and not really receiving from a national standpoint. I mean, we're talking about undefeated Georgia, not even ranked. You've got Georgia Tech, obviously one loss, not being talked about from a national standpoint of being ranked. Like, I mean, obviously it's a show me weekend, but I'm hoping that the Jake, maybe you're going to lean SEC here, Mr. Sometimes SEC guy, sometimes not. But I mean, who do you feel is more like their record is more accurate of what type of team they are? Is it Georgia or is it Georgia Tech? Because we're going to learn this weekend, but I know I just said, I'm a little hesitant on Georgia Tech. I still feel more confident in them than I do Georgia.
I think Georgia Tech, with that loss in Cornell, the pitching issues that they had Friday, I think that's going to be more of the team that they are than an undefeated Georgia who's kicking the snot out of everybody. I mean, I know Wes Johnson from LSU was the pitching coach is going to get them playing a lot better, but it still is the Charlie Condon show. I think that they still have kind of the talent to be one of the top SEC teams in that second tier. But I think Georgia Tech's pitching issues against Cornell are kind of going to be more of the same of what we see from them.
I don't know. I like the way Georgia Tech is going to match up, and it's not the Charlie Condon show. No one's talking about Charlie Condon today when Drew Burris hit 4 home runs, are they? It's the Drew Burris show, my guy.
No one is talking about Charlie Condon today. I will give you that one.
Yeah, by the way, he's one of the best players in the country. So I'm only making jokes here. So, but Drew Burris is the talk. Yeah, Drew Burris is the talk of the town right now. That's the biggest word I've ever heard you use. By the way, Jake, well played. But yeah, we're gonna find out this weekend. That's gonna be a really fun one, and they're doing the 1-1-1 thing, except it's going. We'll talk about it later, but I think it's going at Georgia Tech, then Georgia, then neutral, as opposed to the neutral being the middle game. So moving right along here to another team that is quietly doing pretty well, the Virginia Tech Hokies. They did lose a midweek game to James Madison at James Madison. They came all the way back from, I think, down 7-1. But ultimately got walked off in the end. But they steamrolled Rhode Island this weekend in their home debut. Let's see if we can hear Nick. Nick.
What's up?
Oh, my goodness. All right.
He was actually just waiting because he knows NC State's around the corner. So he was like, I'm just going to wait to hop on when I can finally talk to my boys.
That's what it was.
I don't have much to say about them, but I'm doing this on my phone now, so I don't know what's going on with my laptop.
Hey, Mark Garland does the weekend rotation every weekend on his phone, and he seems to do fine. So no sweat off our back for getting on the phone there.
Well, I'm very sorry, guys. I don't know what the hell's going on with my laptop. It wouldn't let me talk through my mic, and then all of a sudden it wasn't letting me turn on my camera. So I'm not sure what's going on. I did a hard reset on everything.
Wow.
Yeah, so
jeez,
we're thriving.
Well,
we're surviving.
We've moved on. We're talking about Virginia Tech. How they steamrolled Rhode Island. I'll start with you since you haven't been able to talk about any of the other teams. You got thoughts on how Virginia Tech performed this weekend and how they're looking overall?
They're kind of the under the radar team so far in the ACC. We tend to highlight all the top 25 teams, and we pay close attention to them. But I know Micah was a little higher on Virginia Tech going into the season. They could make some noise, but they did well against that in that Charlotte series, and now they just swept Rhode Island. I mean, you're not in a bad place at all if you're Virginia Tech. You're kind of right where you want to be and probably achieving more than what meets the eyes and exceeding a lot of people's expectations so far. I mean, they're 6-1 right now, so they've been doing really well. I have nothing to complain about when it comes to Virginia Tech. They're hitting the hell out of the ball, too.
Didn't they lose in last week? I don't have their schedule in front of me, Monty, but I know you're a little bit more.
They lost to JMU in the midweek.
They lost
That's the only loss.
They lost Jamie in the midweek. They're 5-2. No, they lost to Charlotte in the finale. So, but I will.
That's what it
the
was,
big thing for me is the pitching performances. Their pitching looks much improved. Again, they're facing. I mean, Charlotte isn't the team they were last year, but they're not terrible. Rhode Island's, but I mean, the Virginia Tech wasn't pitching well against these type teams either. But the bullpen had shutouts in their performances in game 1 and 2, and then you see Griffin Stieg in game 3 went 5 shutout innings. So really a lot to like about the bullpen. Micah, what are your thoughts on the Virginia Tech Hokies? They're from near your hometown, I believe.
Pitt's going to catch a stray right here, but we've been talking about how special Pitt is, right? Virginia Tech has been way more impressive than Pitt. Like, I'm just trying to be honest here. I mean, their losses in the midweek to James Madison on the road, in which they battled back down early to force that game to be interesting. By the way, James Madison already hosts a win at Baum-Walker Stadium in Fayetteville. They swept Fairfield, who was the preseason favorite in the MAC. So, like, they have been like James Madison is a way better loss than Cornell, or I would maybe even make an argument that like James Madison's a better loss than Maryland. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. You know, they've been dominant. You know, they dominated Radford again today, which, you know, we just gave some flowers to Georgia Tech for what they did with them. I mean, Virginia Tech got their revenge last year when they played at Radford. They lost like 21-16 in the craziest game I've ever watched on ESPN Plus for a midweek. And then they host Stony Brook this weekend, who again has that win over LSU. So, you know, they've, in my opinion, looked pretty impressive overall. I mean, again, they got 2 losses. I understand that's not the same as a Pitt or a Georgia Tech, but I just, when you factor in again, they went on the road to Charlotte, they went on the road to James Madison. They were at Radford. Like they've had 3 home games and 5 road games so far this season. So I've just been impressed with what this team is. They can hit, and again, we've seen quality pitching from this team. I mean, 0, 5, 7, or excuse me, 5 again, or no, it was 10. Sorry, in the loss, but like. You look at in the last couple outings, it's 3-2, 2, and 4. I mean, they've done a great job. You know, obviously have the stats up there. You know, Griffin Stieg looked fantastic again. I mean, I'm kind of surprised he's the Sunday guy, but it's still early. We'll see how this all shakes out. But they've just, I know it's Rhode Island. I know it's, you know, not the most, you know, dominant out of conference schedule, but if we're going to give flowers to Georgia Tech and Pitt, we definitely have to give them to Virginia Tech as well. And again, makes my stomach sick to do that.
I will point out that they had 10 extra base hits on Friday. They had 10 extra base hits on Saturday. They only had 4 on Sunday, but they scored 14 runs. So the Bats are going to play in ACC play. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Carson DiMartini, Garrett Michelle, those guys are dudes. Christian Martin, Chris Cannizzaro, dudes. Ben Watson almost hit for the cycle, but decided to get a double instead of a single that would have completed it. On Friday, he went 4 for 6 with 2 doubles, a triple, a home run, 7 RBIs. So he could have just stopped at first and gotten the cycle, but you know, he was hungry for those extra base hits.
Baseball. Unselfish baseball money.
Yep. Jake, what are your thoughts?
You'd be happy. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. You'd be happy to know that Virginia Tech also had 10 extra base hits today against Bradford.
And I know their freshman shortstop had his first career home run in his first career start.
So did he get to mime the hammer bang?
I think they've got it set up so they can actually do the hammer bang, and it doesn't count. It counts as being in the dugout.
That was the stupidest thing because the NCAA argued that they would go out and do it like right by the pitcher. That was why they banned it. But just to talk a little bit about this Virginia Tech team, I mean, the Rhode Islands and the other series, we knew that coming in. But I think what we didn't know coming in is just how much these pitchers were going to fill up the zone. Brett Renfro, only 2 walks. Wyatt Parliament, only that 1 walk. Griffin Stieg on Sunday with the 1 walk. I mean, that's stuff that when you really get into ACC play, filling up the zone is going to matter. Yeah, your strikeouts are going to go down. Your hits are going to go up. But if you can keep those pitch counts down low, limit the use of the bullpen, I mean, that's what Virginia Tech really, really loves to do. That's what we've seen in the past is they'll throw their starters 100 pitches every week like they're Paul Skeens. But the Bats are hot for Virginia, but we knew that coming in. But I know this feels dirty saying Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
you got it correct.
This
I was going to do it,
feels-
but I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah, Monty always
Yeah.
corrects me, but it feels dirty talking about how good the pitching
Not
is
always.
when they've had 3 of 4 extra base hits be double digits. But again, I think that this is just more. I come away more impressed with this Virginia Tech staff. They're a lot deeper than I think that they lead on.
One more thing about the Bats.
Yeah,
As a
yeah,
team,
that's.
they're.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead, Monty. Or I was just gonna say.
No, I
one
was
more
saying
thing
go
about
ahead.
The Bats.
Why are you on like a tape delay, Monty?
yeah, he's 100% on the tape delay. Without a doubt, he's on the tape delay.
I thought it was on my end again. I was gonna be like, oh my god, I'm gonna leave this stream and not.
Well, I
come
guess it is
back.
on his end now.
I was just gonna say, Virginia Tech as a team, and every hitting category you can kind of think of, except batting average. Let me see if I got that right. Yeah, except batting average, they're top 5 in everything: slugging percentage, on base percentage, RBIs, hits, doubles, triples, homers. They're really, they're playing all around really good baseball. I know you just talked about this staff, Jake, but the Bats are really, really impressive, like out the gate so far.
We need to get like a inflatable hammer, Monty, when we talk about Virginia Tech. If they keep doing double-digit extra base hits, we'll just bop the hammer around. Micah, they did that for a promotion a few years ago. So,
They did.
maybe you could steal it.
I did.
Monty, the consummate professional, organizing his notes there.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was hoping I wasn't seen. All right, we're moving on to the Clemson Tigers. Not a great Friday night for them. Absolutely shellacked, 18-1 at Bakich pulled the starters in around the 6th inning. The starters for Clemson, there was just one hit. That was Cam Cantarella, Will Taylor 0 for 2, Blake Wright 0 for 2, Mathis 0 for 2, and so on. And Billy Barlow got tagged for 5 runs. They lose 18-1. The only home run was some freshman in the 8th inning when they were already down 17-0. So they needed to bounce back. They ended up winning the series. Jake, what are your thoughts?
First off, I want to apologize to all of our Clemson fans. I said that Clemson was going to be the last undefeated team about Friday morning. So just the kiss of death for them. And they made me look like an ass. So I do apologize. Clemson fans, to redeem you, I'm picking the South Carolina Gamecocks this weekend. So all the Jinx powers will go into them. But back to the game, I think that they were just kind of looking forward. I mean, South Carolina Clemson is one of the greatest rivalries in all of college baseball. Kennesaw State's really not somebody that you get up to get excited about playing. They're a newly minted D1 in a new conference. It's a little bit kind of weird. Cam Cantarella obviously had the injury rumors on Friday that I guess kind of came to fruition as he was out of the lineup today, DH'd kind of all weekend. So there's a lot of external distractions that I think kind of led to them being flat. And again, baseball is one of those sports where the second you think that you have somebody figured out, where you think that you're better than you actually are, the game humbles you really, really quickly. And I think that that's what we saw on Friday. I mean, Billy Barlow's not going to go 2 innings, 5 runs very often. And that lineup isn't going to go hitless for as much as they did. I think that this was, like we said, a midweek flop just on a Friday night.
Nick, what are your thoughts? Were you surprised at that 18-1? Does it give you any concerns about Clemson?
Not really. I think the trend that we've seen in college baseball so far this year is that a lot of the teams that we expected to purely dominate have not. Look at Wake last week. You can look at all these other teams, LSU, A&M. Everyone has dropped something that they shouldn't have. And unfortunately, that happened to Clemson in a pretty embarrassing fashion on Friday night. But it doesn't really bother me. I think they're still going to be fine. They bounced back in a tough game on Saturday and then kind of had control of that game, the season series, or the game 3 of the series on Sunday. So I'm not too concerned. We know how good they are. I think it was just a very, very weird game on Friday.
Micah?
So you'll have to, when you work in an old football stadium / old basketball arena, I don't know what that pipe noise is. So if my ceiling caves in, I'm sorry in advance. But hopefully the noise, background noise isn't too loud. But it's not being very nice right now. But it's not. There's not cause for concern for me. But there is a pretty big level of just disappointment. Like I know you guys are wanting to chalk up I don't necessarily disagree with you, Jake, on the look ahead factor. But when do you get, like, if it's true look ahead factor, why didn't you wake up in the fourth inning when it's 5-0? Why did you give up 8 in the fifth? And then just continue to just get hammered. I mean, once it got out of hand and became 13-0, fine. I don't expect anybody to try to mount some furious comeback at this point. But I mean, I respect what Eric Backus did with just pulling the starters and kind of basically setting the tone. And then, again, did they end up winning on Saturday? Yes. But they kind of come out a little bit flat on Saturday too. I mean, it's 3-3 going to the bottom half of the fourth. It wasn't a very pretty weekend for Clemson. But again, I'm not chalking this up as too much of a again, cause for concern. I mean, today in the midweek against Upstate, they looked pretty good too. So overall, I mean, this weekend, I mean, this is a show me weekend for so much of the ACC. So, again, I'm not going into this like the sky is falling, but it was disappointing to kind of see just a lack of focus, I guess, from Clemson this weekend.
And speaking of them looking good today, Will Taylor looks like he's finally got started after a really slow start. He had a 3 home run game today. So we had a 4 home run game with Drew Burris for Georgia Tech today, and we had a 3 home run game from Will Taylor at Clemson today. So good news for them as Will Taylor is really going to be important for that offense. Moving
Monty,
along,
every ACC team won today. By I just noticed that every ACC team won today.
Yes, Jake, they did. Today being Tuesday, if you're listening to the podcast another day, we're talking on Tuesday evening. We're moving on to the class of the ACC so far, and that is the Duke Blue Devils, who sweep Northwestern. They do it in a variety of ways. The pitching staff continues to dominate. Jonathan Santucci, 6 innings today, this time, 0 earned runs, 10 strikeouts, 3 walks. He continues to be dominant. Even Andrew Healy looked a little bit more improved than last week. Aiden Weaver a little bit less so. James Talon had a bit of a rough time on Sunday, but Charlie Bielenson continues to be a seemingly amazing closer as he gets his 4th save of the year. And then we had a lot of offense in Game 3 that you're going to see some more names in here. I once again did not add Kyle Johnson, who also had a monster performance this weekend on the mound and a triple hitting. So we'll start with Micah. Micah, I wanted to get the Kyle Johnson thing out of the way because I knew you'd hit it if I didn't. But what are your thoughts on Duke? They're scoring enough runs for you?
I think you'd be happy to know that I got to spread the gospel of Kyle Johnson this weekend to our CFO. We were in the press box at our game on Sunday against Ryder, and I had my personal laptop set up, which I could flip around and try to watch some of the games because I'm just the music operator at our games. So, like, as long as I'm kind of paying attention, I can do my job. And I was like, yeah, this kid is a stud. And we watched about an inning and a half, and he's like, wow, like, that kid is really good. And I was like, let's go. I've got somebody on the bandwagon, but no, Monty.
So is he going to come to
they have not scored
an NIL deal, Micah?
Yeah, right. They haven't scored enough runs yet, though. 47 runs in their last 4 games. No, not cutting it for me. They gotta figure the hitting out. I mean, 17 today, 20 on Sunday, 8 on Saturday. I mean, 2 runs to Northwestern. Yeah. Call off this season. It's over. I can't do this anymore. No, I mean, I think what's been most impressive, Monty, is, again, you can throw the slack in my face for not hitting. I just want to point out that was Jake on our podcast originally who first said, yep, I don't know if this Duke team can hit. I proposed a question, but it was Jake that was out here trying to tell me that Duke can't hit. So before you come at me, remember to go at Jake a little bit. But
I will apologize. I will real quick. I will apologize to Micah because I'm using him, and it's not. And as he pointed out, it's not really his fault. And it's also a lot of people like that was the big question mark. Even Chris Pollard said, there was some. He didn't have necessarily less confidence, but he knew that the media had questions about their offense, and they've exceeded even his expectations. But yeah, so apologies to Micah when I give him a hard time about it. It's not really Micah not knowing ball or anything. It's just a little fun teasing, especially since it wasn't really him that said it. It was Jake. So it's even funnier when you take that into account.
I also just love with Duke that they can win in different ways, right? Like saw the Indiana game where it kind of felt like it was, and even the Coastal game, right? Like not that it was living and dying by every pitch, but that wasn't an offensive explosion by any means. The Liberty midweek was kind of similar. Again, the Friday Northwestern game. But then we've also seen them, like it's a little concerning to give up 9 runs to Northwestern, right? But guess what did they do in that game? Oh, they just decided to score 20. Like they can kind of play high scoring ball, low scoring ball. They're very, they adapt a lot. And that's something that I've thought has been very impressive with them is, again, they can win in different ways. When they need the bats, they get it. When they can, that 2-0 win on Friday, if anyone, that's listening watched it, it kind of felt like Duke was just on cruise control. They're like, oh yeah, Jonathan Santucci's pitching. We really don't have they score. Was it? I mean, double check the box score. Yeah, they score in the first 2 innings, right? It's 2-0, and they're like, okay, we're good.
I think Ben Miller. Yeah, I think Ben Miller hit a home run in the.
Yeah, and they just said we're done. We don't. We don't need to score more. Yeah.
What a classy host. Let Northwestern feel like they're going to be in the game.
I will say the most concerning thing is. Micah touched on it. He said it was kind of scary. They gave up 9 runs. James Talon gave up 7 of those runs on Sunday, so that's concerning. And I don't know how they could possibly replace him with their dozen other pitchers if he struggles. But yeah, Nick, what are your thoughts?
Rumor has it their bullpen catcher and their bat boy can also throw. I mean, that's just the rumor around town. And I heard whoever their athletic trainer is, he also can hit top 95 on the gun.
Yeah, it's wild. Nick? Oh no!
I know he was muted.
Okay, good. I was worried. You muted him?
He had some background noise earlier. It showed me notes.
I did?
A little bit.
Oh, I'm almost positive it was me. I'm almost positive.
I
keep muting myself.
It's dead silent in here. So.
The sky was falling because.
Also, now that I know I can mute people, guess who's getting muted anytime he snickers in the background? Go ahead, Nick.
Did anybody flop in this game? No? Okay, good.
No.
Good. Okay. I had a tweet that turned Duke fans the wrong way about the basketball game this weekend. But Duke early on kind of reminds me of Wake last year. Now, it's not top notch what Wake was last year, but they're hitting and pitching like nobody else is right now in the ACC, at least. They're top 10 in every category you can think of, or I'm sorry, they're top 5 in any pitching category you can kind of think of. Ben Miller and Wallace Clark are top 5 in almost every hitting category. They're hitting the ball, they're pitching. It might be a hot take, but they really do remind me of Wake Forest last year. Just all around great games. They can pitch, they can hit, they can win on low scoring games. If they have to put up 20 runs, they'll put up 20 runs. It doesn't really matter to them. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been taking out of Duke this year, is that they really do remind me of Wake.
Yeah, probably with less star power, but yeah, I can see your point there. The way they're playing is very reminiscent of how Duke got started last year. Love to see it. Duke is is ready to roll. That Duke Wake Forest series is going to be a fun one in 2 weeks. So moving along to a team that seems to be going a little bit under the radar because they haven't really had to play much of anyone, but they've impressed when they have, and that's the Florida State Seminoles. They are, as of today, 7-0 after they just rocked South Florida 12-4. But this weekend against Western Carolina, Cam Leiter, he had a rough day compared to last week. He gave up a run. He only struck out 8. Only went 5 innings, although he went 5 innings last week. Jamie Arnold, though, ACC Pitcher of the Week. So they have both Pitchers of the Week so far this season, as Jamie Arnold. Also apologized to him. I had a typo last week that said he had given up 3 earned runs last week. He has not given up any earned runs this season. He had 11 Ks, career high. If he's back to where you want to be in the rotation, that's fantastic to see. He struggled last year in his first chance as a rotation guy, as a true freshman. It's good to see him taking that step forward his sophomore year. But Yoel Tejeda got his first start. He did not throw a strike. Not a great day for him, but Florida State just went ahead and scored 20 runs. So, Jake, let's start with your Florida State Seminoles. What are your thoughts?
I'm really, really happy with, I think, the outing that we got from Cam Leiter and Jamie Arnold. Like you said, it was a little bit worse from Cam Leiter, but if you're getting 11 innings, 1 earned run, 19 Ks from your starting pitching, you're going to win a lot of games. I really like what I've seen from Cam Smith so far. I know that he's not listed as one of the top performers, but just from a leadership standpoint, I think he's really taken that step forward that Link Jarrett really lacked last year from this team as they really, really struggled. He seems to be more vocal in the dugouts, more vocal in the field, kind of getting lines up. So exciting to kind of see him kind of take that next step forward. And then James Tibbs, he had the 2 home runs this weekend. Exciting player. The vibes are really, really high in Florida State. I don't think that they're in that upper echelon tier 1 yet, but I think that they're a lot closer than a lot of people give them credit for.
Yeah, to touch on Cam Smith, he went 5 for 13 on the weekend, and he went 4 for 5 today with let me see, a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, he had 4 RBIs. I had the stat locked and loaded, but Monty had to jump in and be Mr. Hero over here, and then didn't even have the full stat line. Jeez.
Yeah, Monty is the professional, the hardest working man in baseball.
Yeah,
he had these stats off the dome.
So James Tibbs had 2 home runs over the weekend. He had 2 more today. But yeah, 4 for 5, 4 RBIs, and a home run that was 109 miles per hour off the bat. How do you like that, Micah?
I love it.
That's lower than a Bazana bomb I saw this weekend, Monty.
Also, okay, Jake, I'm muting you. Drew Farreau. I don't know how he doesn't win ACC Player of the Week. I know Vance Honeycutt had 3 home runs, but I mean, meh. When you go 8 for 11 with 6 extra base hits and 7 RBIs, just casually go 8 for 11, whatever. Micah, go ahead, hit me with some stats.
I don't like that you're giving Drew Farreau all this credit for hammering my arch rival, Western Carolina. For those of you that don't know, Western Carolina is ETSU's biggest rival in the SoCon because our biggest rivals, Furman and Chattanooga, do not offer baseball. So I don't appreciate the somewhat, slight positivity you're giving the Western Carolina Catamounts. But no, I mean, goodness gracious, this team is, again, they haven't played anybody truly of note, right? But they are just so dominant. And Monty, you have no idea how excited I am to see that they're playing in Greenville this weekend. I'm going to be the silly goose, the weirdest term of all time, I know, that, because Greenville is not very far from Clemson. Clemson, South Carolina will be going on Sunday, and I'll probably be at Florida State, and I believe is that the Illinois game? Of course, Western Michigan. I think I'm going to pick my new MAC champion, by the way, in my bracketology versus, the Florida State Seminoles. But, it's just they were dominant again today against South Florida. They've looked just so good. I mean, and there needs to be one thing that I've been trying to preach to so many people that around me and friends wise, I don't really understand college baseball. Like, being 8-0 in college baseball is really impressive. It's hard to come in and night out and win no matter who you're playing. So the fact that they're just continuing to just control these games and pretty much just dominate has been just so impressive. And has there been?
They did get a rain out, Micah. To be fair, they haven't. This was their first series all the way through.
No, that's fair. But I mean, at what point have we looked at a Florida State game and questioned whether this team is really? I mean, I guess the Jacksonville game was 4-4 going into the 7th. So I guess that's really
Yoel Tejada when they loaded the bases.
Correct.
That was the only time I've done it. And then they ended up being a non-issue, like really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's on the road in a midweek. Like, it's just been impressive to say the least. And, again, it's early. We haven't seen a ton of testing stuff. We'll probably not see a true test until March 12th when they go to Gainesville. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about a team that missed the tournament last year, right? And they're 6-0, 7-0. Math is hard.
For the first time in like 50 years.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone is questioning Florida State right now, like, let's just enjoy the fact that they're doing something very historic. And yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Florida State, especially. I really love pitching, so the Leiter Arnold combo is really enticing. And then Connor Whitaker, I would imagine, is going to slide into that Sunday. I think he should have been the Sunday guy, but when they had that rain out, they moved him to Tuesday, just kind of like what Louisville was doing with Liggett. There's guys that are getting midweek starts a little here early, but they're not going to be midweek starters for the whole year. So I imagine Connor Whitaker is going to move into that Sunday slot. They've just been kind of maintaining this routine because of that rain out first weekend. Nick, your thoughts on Florida State that we haven't already covered?
We debated who was most likely going to take the bigger step. I think it was between the two teams that didn't make it to Charlotte. And Durham last year. And I think already we have a pretty good answer that Florida State out the gate has been the better team. And most likely we will see back in the ACC tournament. And they look really, really good. I get it. It's, they didn't play a whole lot last week because of the rain out, and it's Western Carolina. But James Tibbs has taken a huge step. He was basically the only offensive player of note from last year's team, and he is top 5, top 10 in a lot of hitting categories this year, where maybe you would see him in like 3 or 4 different categories in terms of his hitting. And pitching was the biggest thing coming into this season, and they have found a lot of great pitching so far. I don't think it's too bold for anyone to say that this team can be a regional team. The start that they've had, everyone's looked really good. I picked Link Jarrett to be my coach of the year, and so far he's kind of on track for that. The way that he's handled his staff so far and the way that he's handled the batters, I mean, it's been great. So I'm really high on Florida State right now.
Nick, tell me that you know ball more than me without telling me you know ball more than me, because I had Louisville and I picked Louisville to have the coach of the year with Dan McDonald, and you're over here just dropping the Link Jarrett, and Florida State was going to be more improved.
Link Jarrett too, Micah, to be fair. I thought Link Jarrett was like.
I'm muting you, Jake.
For taking the opposite.
Well,
I've learned
this was Jake. This was like before we all joined together. We did like our own preview, and yeah, Micah knew that I picked Link Jarrett like a month ago.
I said it back in December. We did our preview.
There
Jake,
you go.
You don't have to involve yourself in everything.
Jake knows ball. That's
Jake and I are YKB boys. Welcome to the club. We know ball.
We're Link Jarrett fan club president right here.
We are 7 games in. Jake has been muted for a little bit. We're going to be moving along. I did want to shout out Carson Dorsey, who came on in relief. Jake has unmuted himself, but Carson Dorsey came on a relief last week against Jacksonville when they were tied 4-4, and I think he threw 4 innings and had like 11 strikeouts in relief. That's another guy that is a JUCO transfer who's just absolutely nasty. So they've got some pitching, boys. Moving along.
I've got something positive for our Florida State fans watching live. I'm currently watching the Florida Gators, who trail the Stetson Hatters 7-4 in the bottom of the 8th, and the Stetson has the bases loaded. So there's a very good chance the Florida Gators are going to lose their midweek to the Stetson Hatters tonight. So
That's
Florida
exciting.
State fans are on top of the world.
In moving along to North Carolina, who had a really fun series with East Carolina. It felt kind of like a regional with the atmospheres. East Carolina ended up taking 2 of 3 in close games. In the first 2 games, UNC kind of struggled to score. Vance Honeycutt was your ACC Player of the Year. He went 4 for 11 on the weekend, 2 home runs. He hit a 3rd home run earlier in the week during the midweek. And Casey Cook.
Of the week, Monty, not the year.
What I say of the year? My bad. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Vance Honeycutt, ACC Player of the Week, despite some other performances that may have been a little bit more impressive, but he was facing ECU pitching. So we'll start with Nick. What do you think about this series with East Carolina?
I mean, this is just classic North Carolina baseball. I mean, every, I guess, Big Four or Power 5 team or whatever gets up for ECU. You can't take these guys lightly. They're always going to be a pain in the butt. They're always going to be a very, very good team, very well coached. They're going to have dudes all the time. It's just, I can't, the only thing I have of note is that when Micah and I were kind of previewing UNC about a month ago, this is the type of series that they kind of had to win to get over the hump of how far do we think this team is going to go in terms of will they make Omaha or not? And this was kind of a little early series that they kind of had to have to really, get over that top 15 hump and be like, okay, you are like one of the 8 teams that we could consider for Omaha. It's early and ECU is really good. I'm not thinking too much about it. It's a classic series. I mean, anytime a Carolina school plays ECU, whether it's NC State or Duke or Campbell, who played ECU in the midweek last week and won, I mean, everyone in North Carolina gets up for everybody. So just a really good series. I really loved watching it. That Game 3 was, I think, the best. Just back and forth, slug for slug, punch for punch. It was awesome. For Carolina moving forward, it's just like they've got to win series. How do I word this? They got to win the series that will get them over that hump of, okay, you're not a great team. You're like going to be an elite team. And this was an opportunity and they kind of just fell short.
Is Monty frozen?
I agree. Sorry, I was no, I was on a delay. No, I was reading your private chat that I missed from like 10 minutes ago. But yeah, no, I agree. It's gonna be interesting to see. Micah, you have concerns about this UNC?
No, I think if anything, I know this is not they're not an ACC team. I think it just kind of reassured my opinions of ECU. I mean, last year, obviously, Monty, we got to see him up close and personal in the Charlottesville Regional, and you felt like I maybe this is the wrong take, but I feel like ECU was the best team that didn't get to a Super Regional last year in the tournament. I think just the style of play with them in Virginia. I mean, Virginia technically swept the Charlottesville Regional, but it really felt like, if ECU gets one bounce in that regional, who knows who comes out of it. But, obviously I was a little concerned with the performance of Olin Johnson on Sunday. That wasn't the most promising thing. And Folger Boaz, wow, I'm struggling with words today, still looked, like as good as he could have. I mean, this was the best series we've had in college baseball so far this year. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, best series. Again, not talking about all these preseason tournaments, right? Best pure series, 3 games between the same opponents. And it might be the best one we've seen even when you factor in this weekend. I mean, there's obviously some really great ones, but it did feel like a regional. I mean, ECU has their largest crowd in program history. You have the largest crowd in Segra Park history on Saturday. I mean, a college baseball game. had a larger attendance in a minor league baseball game on the 4th of July. That's pretty stinking impressive. And then you factor in again, the crowd was great on Friday. UNC and ECU battled it out. I mean, I wasn't seeing UNC as this like top 5 team. So I think everything we saw this weekend just kind of assured me that, A, ECU is really, really good at baseball, but B, that UNC is maybe not at the level of some of the top dogs in the ACC, but they're good enough to hang around, and you never want to give a team with this much talent the ability to do so.
Yeah, I will say a good thing you've got to be happy about if you're winning season. Last year, he hit a home run in the second game after going 3.
Monty's got the bad internet tonight.
2 RBIs. So,
Monty's definitely struggling with the internet.
That was not. Yeah, Nick, you did not need to leave and come back. That was all Monty's internet.
Damn.
So sorry about that, Monty.
Monty took his good internet to Jacksonville. It didn't travel back with him.
Yeah.
My internet's been fine.
My
internet's fine. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, we're having issues with you. You're on the tape delay. Now you're lagging. But I guess I'll get us back on track here. Monty, do you remember what we said on Saturday after when we talked about the UNC ECU game? If they didn't win with Chavez, they're not going to win the weekend, and they made us rue that kind of prediction there. But on Sunday, honestly, I think this is nothing to really hang your head about if you're a UNC player. I mean, it was a back and forth game, 50-50 game. You get walked off like that. I mean, I think that they're a lot closer to the top. I came away very, very impressed with them. I mean, Folger Boaz being the Friday night guy, I know that was something that we all kind of like not questioned, but we were like, really? That's who they're going with on the Friday night guy? And 2 weeks in, I mean, he is the billing of a Friday night ace. I mean, he had those only 5 hits in that 1 run, so he's more of a contact pitcher. And again, Monty, every weekend I want to talk about Vance Honeycutt, and every weekend you kind of bring me down to earth, and you're like, yeah, he's only hitting 250, and I'm like, but he hit 3 home runs. So, Vance, he's going to have to work on the contact and be more of a gap-to-gap hitter, but I mean, home runs are fun.
He's doing really well. It's just I saw some guys that had some monster weekends, and that's why I was kind of disappointed. But I think they're taking into account also it was against 2 of those home runs against East Carolina versus some of the other guys are playing lower competition. So you got to take that into account as well. Moving along now to Boston College. We're heading to Boston College, who I'm going to be seeing this weekend as they come down to Virginia. But not the University of Virginia, but the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth. But they took another loss on Friday. They got beat up pretty bad by UT Arlington, 11-6. But AJ Colarusso and Tyler Mudd combined for the shutout on Saturday. Both those guys continue to be nails. Tyler Mudd has not given up an earned run in, I think, 9 innings of relief in his 2 games. So that's really exciting. And then they win Sunday shootout 17-8. One of the big things you like to see is Cam Leary. He's back after, a bunch of up and down season last year with injuries. He had a multi-home run game on Friday in that loss. But Jake, I saw you doing the thumbs down for your for Boston College. What's up with that, buddy?
I think that they have to get a D on the weekend. They lose Friday night, and John West really, really wasn't impressive in any way, shape, or form. UNT Arlington is not one of those quote-unquote Texas teams. They're not DBU or Sam Houston, where they're a sneaky kind of mid-major. They're a tier below. And then on Sunday, I mean, they were losing very, very late, and UT Arlington just ran out of pitching. I mean, if they face a team that has a deeper bullpen, they're losing 2 of 3 to a UT Arlington team that is not very impressive. This isn't the Mike Gambino Boston College team that we saw last year. I think you need to start to worry a little bit about this Boston College. Despite the series win, I think that they should have been a little bit more impressive.
And I think, too, something that you didn't mention that I think is very important to mention, on Saturday, UT Arlington loaded the bases in the 9th inning with nobody out. They got out of it, but again, just to talk about what you were mentioning with this UT Arlington team, like you can't do that in ACC play. That's going to be runs. Like, you can't do that. I was watching it live, and it's funny because I was literally sitting in this exact spot when it was happening, and I was like, I'm going to flip over to a new game. It's 3-0 going in the ninth. BC's going to take it, slam the doors. And then I look up and I'm like, oh, there's a runner on. Okay. Oh, another single. Now it's first and second. Oh, another single. Now the bases are loaded with nobody out. And again, they got out of it. And the best part is the bases loaded with nobody out. They work a full count. And that was a battle. There was a chance that they were about to walk in a run with nobody out. It was definitely concerning to see BC kind of mess around, I guess, early. And then, like you said, they just UT Arlington ran out of arms on Sunday. But again, did any of us expect Boston College to be world beaters this year? So, I think D is a little harsh, Jake, if I'm being honest, just because
I expected them to be like
they got a series win on the road.
3. They're Boston. They have to go on the road. It's not like they're going to be playing at home. We shouldn't really applaud.
That still plays a factor.
Did you give Georgia Tech a D on the weekend last weekend? Because if not, then I hear it. They lost to Cornell at home.
We're back at Georgia Tech.
I'm just saying. Like if
I'm just laughing.
But if you're going to give Boston College a D, then you got to give it to Georgia Tech, who lost to just as bad a Cornell team at home.
Yeah, but they didn't lose. The only reason they won on Sunday is because UT Arlington forgot how to pitch. Georgia Tech was like a completely different story. And then they lost Friday. John West did not look impressive at all.
Micah, don't bring up logic with Jake with his opinions, because sometimes it just doesn't work like that. All right, there's the Charlie Day meme. That's how his logic works, and we can't figure that out. Okay,
I agree with the John West struggling stuff, but at the end of the day, like they took the same amount of games as Georgia Tech did. Georgia Tech played UT Arlington, whether you want to say guy is better than Cornell, and one was at home, the other was on the road.
We're getting sidetracked here.
We need to tell Nick to calm down. He's being too loud. He's we're hearing too much of his opinion on this Boston College team. Yeah, Nick, quietly tell us about Boston College.
I only wish I was here earlier to hear about the stuff you guys were talking about with Georgia Tech. I'm so upset that I missed the Georgia Tech talk, and I'm sure Micah went off on them. Look, we knew Boston College was going to be world beaters this year, but a series win is a series win, and you'll take it right now. Who I've been most impressed with in this series, and basically since the start of the season, is Cam Leary. He's been their heart and soul right now of this BC team. But, the pitching does worry me a little bit, and I think it's really impressive how they came out on Saturday, but the pitching, if they don't figure out something fast, it's not going to last ACC play. And I don't know where you guys had Boston College, like in terms of regionals or even making it. I would just hate to see them with such a great season last year fall apart, or not fall apart necessarily, but take a step back. And it seems like a lot of people think that they will. They just got to ride the ship and just try to keep winning these games, winning these series where they can. I don't think they'll miss out on Durham this year, but the bats are really, really good right now. So that you'll take that any day.
Yeah, and it is interesting talking about them, because the good news is I don't think they're going to go back to that 5-23 team they were a couple of years ago. Not anytime soon, at least this year or hopefully next year. But, you'd like to see them kind of be close to getting back to the NCAA tournament, being on that bubble. And I don't know if that's going to happen. We've got to see. There's a lot of experimenting going on, and it's hard to tell whether there should be concerns or whether these are things that are going to figure themselves out. So we'll have to find out and see. But moving along to another team that didn't have the best weekend. Notre Dame went on the road for a 4-game series against FIU. They took 2 of 3, they split the series 2-2. David Glancy, Tito Flores, 2 graduate transfers, one from St. John's. That's Glancy. Flores from Michigan. They had some good times, but pitching for them didn't do too well either. They gave up 10 runs in each game on Saturday, which you hate to see. And then somehow their fourth game, which you would expect to be the kind of shootout because you don't have a normal starter out there, that's the lowest scoring game of the weekend, and it's a 3-1 game. But Micah, what are your thoughts on the Fighting Irish?
I mean, they feel very average. I mean, I really don't have a lot. I mean,
I know that's why I laughed, because I could tell that you were just like.
I mean, Rice is very. I mean, Jake can harp on it, but I mean, Rice is just they're not bad, but they're not good.
Yeah, they are.
FIU kind of falls into the same category of like, I'm sure FIU will probably be a scrappy team in the CUSA, but they're probably not going to push Dallas Baptist, or Sam Houston State for that actual crown, right? And at the end of the day, splitting this weekend is a little concerning. I mean, it's then like this weekend they go to Tennessee Tech. I mean, Notre Dame just kind of feels like, okay, we'll have a conversation of who they are March 8th, 9th, and 10th when they go to Blacksburg for Virginia Tech, because right now it's just they feel like they're just sitting in the bottom, like they're gonna be at the bottom of the ACC because there's not been a ton of reasons to believe that they're at the top right now with what we've seen from other programs. And again, they're just kind of, just very average.
I think this is going to be a team that we just check the box on every week. I don't think they're going to be like abysmal dog shit where we spend 20 minutes talking about how bad they suck. We're just going to be like, Notre Dame lost 2 of 3. Tito Flores had 2 hits one of the games. Like that's, I feel like that's kind of how Notre Dame is. And the series perfectly exemplifies it. They weren't so god awful that we're going to take laps around the field laughing at them. They were just kind of Notre Dame, like,
That's 2 curse words on the show today for Jake. One more and he's out. So just remember there are children listening to this. All right. No. Nick, you have any different thoughts on Notre Dame and how you feel about them? Do you have? Kind of sums them up.
I'm a little worse than meh. I think I think Notre Dame is about to not have a really good season at all. I think they're just going to be a team that we look at like, man, can you believe that they were in Omaha 3 years ago? Like, what happened? Last year they were an 8 seed in the ACC tournament, and to me right now, out the gate, it feels like that they're going to be one of the 2 teams that are not going to make the ACC tournament. I know you got, maybe I could be wrong. I know you guys are a little bit higher on them than I am, but they don't do anything that makes me feel like, wow, like maybe this team can make a regional run. Like maybe they can take a couple of ACC series. Like, I don't know. It doesn't feel good to me. Like they don't really have elite pitching. Their bats are meh. They're not in any like kind of good categories right now. And they're at the easy part of their schedule, so it's going to be a hard stretch for me to like kind of consider this Notre Dame team to be, up with the rest of the ACC teams.
Yeah. Not much else to say about it. You about summed it up there. Moving along to the Miami Hurricanes, who had a disappointing Saturday, but kind of responded really well on Sunday with a 22-5 win. Herrick Hernandez continues to be impressive. He now has 12 innings of scoreless pitching, although he did give up 5 hits this time. So again, takes a step back from 0 hits the week before. Rafe Schlesinger was able to go 6 innings of no-run baseball in the game that they lost, which is really good to see. But Gage Zeal kind of still looks meh on the mound. So you got to be pleased with your Saturday and Sunday guys, but there might be a little bit cause concern for Gage Zeal there. But the guy I want to highlight, Daniel Cuvée, he's the guy that I talked about at the beginning of the day who was in a class with Drew Burress. And their stats were really, really close before Drew Burress's game today. Obviously now Drew Burress is just on another planet. But any cause for concern regarding Gage Zeal, Micah?
I mean, there's got to be, right? I mean, Long Island is not a very good ball club. NJIT is, again, like we're talking about ACC status. I don't want to ever slander and say, oh, you're not good at baseball if you play at LIU. It's not ACC level of play. And we're talking about, we're trying to engage Zeal out on Friday night against Florida. I don't know about you all, but I'm not feeling great about that right now. And that's kind of the standard that we're kind of setting is, he's not looked all that sharp. I mean, he did go 7 innings. That's a that's a plus, right? Like, I mean, that's obviously, I do think he took a step forward from last week. So at the end of the day, I think there's reasons to get excited and hope that, he continues to improve. But, the next three weekend series are top 15 teams for Miami. So if they don't kind of get right soon, especially on the Gage Zeal side of things, we might be talking about a team that that on Friday nights not have no chance of winning, but we're not feeling very confident about. And again, I have Miami in the NCAA tournament in my bracketology, and a lot of people think that I shouldn't have them there. So, that should tell you a little bit too about, the overall perception of Miami. But I mean, there's definitely cause for concern. But I mean, when we're talking about Hernandez's line, I mean, I guess my biggest question is, does he move to the Friday role at some point? Or are they going to continue to ride him on Sundays? Because, I mean, I've always kind of thought sometimes you keep your best pitcher on what he's been throwing at because you'll have the matchup advantage on a Sunday, I think, in my opinion, for most of the ACC. If you trot him out there the way he's been playing. But at the same time, I mean, Gage Zeal also hasn't been performing at a Friday night level in the ACC. So do you make the change?
By the way, do you remember where you put Miami in your power rankings?
I think I probably put him at like 12 or 13, didn't I?
13. Yep, you had the lowest.
Yeah, I had him low because,
yeah.
I mean, again, I don't want to slander Long Island, but I mean, as a former Division II athlete, I still can't unsee CW post and then LIU post and now just LIU, the transition of that institution. And we're talking about an LIU team, by the way, who got run ruled in back-to-back games against FIU. So it's hard for me to have a lot of positivity when we've seen a lot of positivity in the ACC for a team that loses 4-2 to an LIU team on a Saturday afternoon. Because that's the thing that stinks. I mean, Rafe pitched incredible on Saturday. Like, it wasn't even like the pitching was the problem. They just couldn't figure out how to hit, and then the bullpen kind of let them down when it mattered most.
Yeah, and I'm not taking a shot at you by bringing up your power ranking. I just noticed that you, of all of us, you put them the lowest. But I mean, other people had them at 11 and 12 as well. So it's not like you were crazily, going at 13 when nobody else did. You just happen to have them a little bit lower than everybody else. So I wanted to get your thoughts.
I had them at
that.
12. So don't let me.
I actually had them at 7. But I mean, you are not alone. I think four people had them at 11. Jake had them at. Or 3 people had them at 11. Jake had them at 12, and you had them at 13. So it's not crazy for you to have put them there. It actually looks like I'm the crazier one for having them at 7 when only Nick had them at 7 as well. So,
Monty, before we move on,
kind of thing.
I just want to credit JD Ortega. I mean, all 3 of his starters threw long outings, and after watching DVH on the weekend, it was kind of refreshing to go and check the box scores and see 80, 90 pitches. It almost felt like a throwback kind of game where you ride your starter as long as you can. You're not playing matchups or that third time through the order. You're just wanting to see how long your guy can go, which I really loved.
It's obvious that he has them ready for the season and they're completely stretched out too, right? So, yeah, it's a good point. Obviously, he's a longtime pitching coach, first time coach this year. But Nick, what do you put them at 7? What do you think about in response to Micah? Why you have them at 7 and Micah has them at 13? Because honestly, you and Micah agree on a lot of things, but that was a rather large gap between the two of you.
That's not the only thing we disagreed on, because we were texting about our top 25 on Sunday night, and we were just kind of going back.
We might have to post those texts, Nick, because I was getting mad at you.
He was getting mad. I could tell when Mike.
Monty, he tried to tell me Auburn's not a top 25 team, so we got into it.
I did not say that. I did not say. No. Now you're twisting my words.
I'll put the receipts right now. Pull the receipts.
I said I had to pick between two teams, Auburn or Georgia. So I eventually did pick Auburn. So don't worry about it. Micah likes to, when we do these rankings and stuff in our top 25 and power rankings, I tend to lean more on, okay, where do I have you to start off with? Where Micah doesn't worry about that at all. He just like,
I don't do that either. I had week 9 last week.
I respect that a lot. I do, because like, I could see, how some people put TCU at number 1 in the country. Like, I totally get that. But to Miami.
Wait, Nick, did you say you don't use last week's rankings, or you do? I'm sorry.
No. I don't. What do you mean? Don't use last week's rankings?
Like, you just say that you don't look at what you had last week and you use it as your base for this week?
No, he's saying he doesn't look at preseason stuff.
No, I look at preseason stuff, and then I don't I don't reset on a new week. I just kind of look at the full body of work, and then where I had I'm not going to drop a team that started from 10 to out because you have a couple of losses in a midweek or in a series. I'm not going to drop you too much, but for Miami, I'm just going to rattle you guys off some stats right now for our boy Daniel Cuvée. Batting average, he leads the ACC, and he's 100 points higher than whoever is number 2. Slugging percentage, he's 300 points higher than Drew Burress, who is at number 2. On-base percentage, 50 points higher than Wallace Clark and JT Benson, who are both tied at number 2. Let's see. He leads the ACC in hits. He leads the ACC in runs scored, along with Carson DeMartini. This kid is just crushing the ball, and he's leading the ACC with Vance Honeycutt and Drew Burress with 5 home runs. And he's only a freshman. So early case for freshman of the year already. He's just crushing the ball, and might have only came in really one game. I mean, I know everyone had a hit parade on Sunday, but I know we're talking bad about Gage Zeal and the rough start that he's had this season, and but to shed some light, and as someone who had Miami in the top 25 last week, I did drop them out of my rankings this week. I will shed some light on Daniel Cuvée, because last night when I was tweeting out our stats, he was number 1 in almost everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this morning. I thanked you for that because it made it really easy to kind of compare Burress and Cuvée. And they were, before Burress's game tonight, they were very, very close in everything. And so there will be an article coming kind of comparing those two, and not necessarily comparing them to see who's better, but to kind of set up this potential freshman of the year race, which hopefully they both can sustain some sort of this success all year and make this a race, because that would be a blast to not have necessarily want to run away and just have that debate over who should win. And then obviously the Georgia Tech Miami series just comes up another level as they go head to head. So that's something really fun. And somebody, the Canes Cats Heat 305 pointed out that Cuvée is better than Yo-Yo. Yohandy Morales is an absolute stud, but I always felt like he was a better pro prospect than college player, and he was a really good college player, but he always felt like he never reached that full potential at Miami. And now the Washington Nationals are getting the benefit of his pro potential. But Daniel Cuvée has stepped on campus and immediately delivered, despite all the expectations and pressure on him. So
I mean, if Brock Wilken didn't exist last year, Yo-Yo is first team ACC when it comes to the third base position.
Wow, Jake Geloff, I guess, can just
right. I was about to bite it. Can I want to quickly add something too, because I mean, it sounds like I'm the anti-Miami. Well, first off, I have him still in my field of 64. Just to be very transparent, my power rankings is only what you've done this season. Yep. I don't factor in preseason. I don't factor in what I think you're going to do later. I also want to defend JD Ortega. If you look at the comments after that loss to LIU, I mean, the season hadn't even started yet. And people are trying to say that Ortega should be gone. Fire him. Terrible hire. Wrong choice. List on and on and on. Like, and I'm thankful that you gave the tip of the hat to having the pitchers ready to go and kind of stretch. Like, he's figuring out all of this as we go along. Why are we writing this guy off? He's a Miami, like he's not a Miami lifer, but he's basically like he's Miami baseball, and it's frustrating to me that we see some of these fans
He's changing the scenery,
on our page going after him already, and it's like the sky is not falling in Coral Gables.
I know, and
I always forget how good they actually are, because all I see is just their fans like shitting on them, telling how much they like are terrible. Like I almost feel like they lose every single game. Like they're Northwestern baseball the way their fans.
They win 22-5, and they still complain that they gave up 5 runs. It's like you won 22-5 on a Sunday. Be happy.
I mean, Micah, we talked to Lucas, a couple weeks ago, and with the coaching change, it's going to be it's going to be a transition, and it's going to be a different environment. They're not going to be the flashy, glammy Miami anymore, where talent beats out how hard you work. Lucas told us they're going to be a gritty team this year.
Yeah, and you got to give a little bit of patience. I mean, imagine if Clemson fans were clamoring for Bakich to be fired last year, or Florida State for Lake Jarrett. You got, especially in your first season, and they're 7 games in. That's just it's just ridiculous. And they're 5-2. They're fine. So anyway, moving along to Nick's NC State Wolfpack. They went out west. They didn't have a mid-game last week. They went out west to Hawaii. Interesting game on Friday that they pulled off. Had a lot of offense, and then lost the second game, and then won the series in another close game. We will start with Nick, because these are his boys. Nick, what were your thoughts on the NC State Wolfpack and their performance against the Rainbow Warriors?
I know it's early, but already this team is starting to remind me of last year's team, except I think this year's team has a little bit more pop off the bat. They're hitting a little bit more of the home run ball. They're getting more hits in general, which you like to see. Unfortunately, the errors are still happening. They are kind of at the bottom tier of the ACC when it comes to fielding percentage. So they're committing a lot of errors. And the relief pitching is still kind of in question. You could take game 3, for example. They were up 10-4, and then all of a sudden, thank goodness that the game was on a time curfew, because it looked like Hawaii was getting ready to storm back. The starters have not looked all the best. Dom Fritton, though, really did bounce back after his start last week, but Sam kind of struggled a little bit, giving up 5 runs. Ryan, he's a freshman, but he looked pretty good. I'm just a little nervous about the fielding again and the relief pitching, because I don't know, that just seemed like what I kept seeing last year, and it's kind of bleeding into this year a little bit. I know it's early, and they've played tougher competition than they usually do to start off the season. I mean, last year, their out-of-conference schedule was just really, really, really bad. This year, they're getting some notable teams that are, not, almost FCS level, right? So that's okay, but I'm still really concerned about the relief pitching. They do give up a lot of runs. I had this stat, and I'm going to see if I can try to find it later, but they're giving up a lot of they're I don't know what Clint Chrysler is doing, but it's kind of looking like the same as last year.
Yeah, Jake, do you think are they showing you anything different from last year, or do you agree with Nick?
I mean, that bullpen is really, really starting to cause concern. I know that was kind of like we'll put it on our radar, but I mean, Hawaii. I mean, yeah, they split with Ole Miss, but I mean, this is not going to be the amount of talent that they're going to see in the ACC. I do appreciate NC State and Hawaii kind of trying to play up before those 10 a.m. games got started on Sunday. or on Saturday, because I mean that one was an absolute late one. I think it ended at about 4:30 Eastern time. But I mean, you really, I wouldn't say it's cause for concern because they went 2-1, but you're kind of starting to pay a little bit more attention to this NC State bullpen and the problems that are coming with it. But the flip side of that is, I mean, they scored 17 runs on a Friday night. That doesn't happen very many places across the country, and especially not when you're playing kind of a Big West opponent like they were in Hawaii. So, take it with whichever side of the pillow you want in this one, but the bullpen's starting to worry me a little bit.
Yeah, Micah?
NC State was the cause for a lot of Nick and I's debates on our wonderful text thread on Sunday. Because if you look at his rankings, he ranks NC State but won't rank Auburn. And to which I obviously went.
Bro, I ranked Auburn. What are you talking about?
You put him like what, 24 or something? But regardless,
I had him 25, Micah.
Yeah, I didn't rank him. And, do I think NC State's a good ball club? Yes. But Nick, you said it yourself. This team is committing the errors that was the detriment of this team last year. They are getting in their own way. And again, it is early, but I am also in agreement with Jake. Like, going to Hawaii does have some value, like the time change. I like when teams challenge themselves by going to places you normally wouldn't go. Like, you don't see in college football NC State going to play Hawaii, right? But you see that in this sport. So I appreciate that. But I mean, losing a game to VCU, losing a game to Hawaii, like, they've yet to look dominant. And for a team that's getting top 25 considerations, like, I would rank Florida State before I rank NC State. I just think we've seen more dominance from Florida State. Again, we will see what NC State is about very quickly, but right now there's cause for concerns with the bullpen. And again, they are getting in their own way right now. And I mean, Nick, you also harped, and that part, I know we never actually texted about it, but you kind of nailed it too on Sunday. I don't know if NC State wins this series if there's not a time crunch. I really don't know.
Yeah.
And if you lose this series to Hawaii, Nick, you're not ranking NC State, are you? So like, I took some of that into consideration. Like, yes, they won. At the end of the day, won the ball game, but they've looked. Even the 17-12 game on Friday. I mean, Sam Highfield looked pretty bad. I mean, he didn't look what we were hoping to see from him so far this year. He looked like last year. And so there's just a lot of concern for me on, like, again, the expectations are high this year for NC State. And right now they're not living up to them, in my opinion.
It's all fair.
All right. Well, that was a good, healthy debate. And I think that covers all the teams, right?
Yes. Well, I mean, you're the slide master, Monty.
Talk about the best team in college baseball, because we haven't done it yet.
All right. Yes, the inaugural Jacksonville College Baseball Classic champions, the Virginia Cavaliers. A great weekend and a really, really fun test for them. Some gritty wins. I think they found out a lot of things about their team. Obviously, they're still going to have some questions, but they've got to be really pleased with what they got out of their offense. They absolutely handled Marcus Morgan on Saturday after going down 6-0. Jay Wolfuck looked really, 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 really good in his relief outing, the longest outing of his career. I'm going to start with Micah. Micah, last week the sky was falling. How are you feeling this week?
I already got my ring fitted.
You went too far the other way.
No, I mean, I'm jealous of you, Monty. I was, again, if I didn't work in college athletics, I'd probably have been there this weekend as well. My family was not too far away, but this team won in different ways. They get done early against Iowa, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how you felt, Monty. I know you're a little more unbiased, and I'm more that show the true colors of my Virginia fandom. But it really did feel like, wow, this team, especially after the Wichita State game, kind of was like, you're glad they won, but it's not like there wasn't any I didn't walk away from the Wichita State win like, wow, this team is, like that was a great win. And then the way they come back against Iowa. And then, I mean, that Sunday game with Auburn was the epitome of what Brian O'Connor has done in Virginia. Just answers the bell time after time. They are strong from start to finish. Great defensive plays to kind of save runs. I know, Monty, you highlighted it on your personal account, the run saving play there at second. I mean, this team are they going to ever lose a non-conference game again? I'd probably say that they're going to probably lose the VMI tomorrow. But are they ever going to lose a non-conference game? Because it's just
at some point,
it's overly.
But yeah, no. This was a really good team. So I will say about Wichita State, they're going to have problems because other than Caden Favors, I don't know how good the rest of their pitching is, but their lineup is a lot better than I think people realize. And we saw that against Iowa, and we saw that a little bit against Virginia. But this was an outstanding weekend for Virginia, especially given the Hofstra thing. But they went in treating this as if it was a regional. So that's why Jay Wolfhook was not the Sunday guy. They wanted Jay Wolfhook if they needed him on Saturday in relief because they wanted to go 2-0 and treat it like a regional. And that's why it's a really good way to test that because you don't get many opportunities to do that kind of a format during the regular season because those are 3-game series. Those are, but very, very good stuff from Ford and Godbout. And the way the offensive clicked without O'Farrell and Anderson having good weekends, I mean, that's got to be wonderful. By the way, I got to shout out Anthony Stefan. Dude had 17 plate appearances. He was on base for 12 of them. Yeah, Tony. Yeah. But I mean, he had 6 walks. He had 2 strikes on him and got hit by a pitch. And I've never seen somebody celebrate about getting on base, getting hit by a pitch so much because he knew the pitcher was going to be frustrated that he had Tony on the ropes, and Stefan takes a pitch off the back and is like, I'm on first base. Let's go. And, I was talking to the SID and he was going to go back and look up how many times Stefan had started a rally. And he's sitting there in the number 2 spot in between O'Farrell and Anderson, and he is getting overlooked. I mean, he didn't have any extra base hits or anything, but I mean, 12 out of 17 times getting on base is really impressive against the level of competition they were playing. Nick, what were your thoughts on this Virginia baseball team?
Man, just gritty. Like every single day was just gritty for these guys. I think we talked about how Virginia might not look as good as they did last year after the Omaha run because they lost a lot of good players. But man, I mean, how can you not come away from this round robin and be like, wow, like Virginia, they're not going anywhere. They're really not. I think this was a better performance than what Duke had last week against Coastal Indiana and George Mason. Like this was so much better. So much better. Gritty wins. I'm just so happy that we finally get to see Wake and Virginia play each other this year because we didn't get to see that last year. And this is going to be like a matchup for the ages in this conference. So right now, how can you not say that Virginia, as of right now, because anything can change, but right now, Virginia looks like an Omaha team to me. Like, I know Micah's really going to hate you. Micah hates it anytime I crush on Virginia. Like, as soon as I start glazing over Virginia, he hates it. Where it comes to football, basketball, he hates it. But I like them a lot. I picked them to go to Omaha. I don't think they'll be out of it. They look really good. They just reloaded. That's about all they did is just reload.
Yeah, and I brought it up with Oak in one of the press conferences after Owen Cody's start against Auburn, and he doesn't have the level of talent that some of the other guys do, but he is a graduate transfer and has started a lot of games in his career. And sometimes that craftiness, even though he's like a high 80s fastball guy, that craftiness is really reminiscent of Brian Edgington and Nick Parker last year, who weren't necessarily the highest talented guys, but they knew how to get outs. They knew how to respond with guys, in jams. They knew how to keep composure and poise, and that really showed the importance. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Owen Cody claiming a permanent rotation spot, because while he doesn't have the talent some of the other guys, he knows how to get outs. He knows how to get guys out, and that's so important. I know I just repeated myself, but yeah, Jake, what are your thoughts?
I'm gonna pump the brakes on Virginia. I know that all three of everybody kind of got crazy.
Keep in mind that Jake did not watch any of their games. He was busy.
That's
in
not
other
true.
Events.
That's not true. Wheels kind of hooked me up there.
That's not watching games.
I got to watch Monty freaking out in the chat while simultaneously is another way to watch it. But I mean, I was very, very low on Wichita State in our preview show.
And you were wrong about that.
Did they win a game?
Yes.
Oh yeah, they did. They did win a game. Yeah, I forgot they would. Iowa. I felt a little bit more like, I know Virginia's got a good. I call them the Python, where they kind of wrap around their opponents. But I walked away feeling really, really bad about Iowa's bullpen. I think that there are a lot of issues there, more so than Virginia's lineup being as good as it is. I think Virginia's kind of in that 8 to 12 range. I mean, they won in gritty ways, like we mentioned. They're getting production from Henry Ford, the freshman. I know that's something that they didn't think. I mean, Casey Salkey's still doing good. But again,
get that kid an NIL deal.
I walked away feeling a lot worse about the other teams, more so than Virginia being good. But, at the end of the day, they went 3-0 with 2 wins over top 25 teams. So maybe I'm just kind of.
Did you walk away worse about Arkansas this weekend after struggling with a really bad Michigan team that's also a mid-major Big Ten team?
Because I'm doing the logic thing again, Micah. You're doing it again.
Micah. The Arkansas fans came from my head. I did say the exact same thing about Arkansas, about their hitting being abysmal.
Shocking. The logic matches up this time.
I know. This guy always breaking my back here.
But I mean, at the same time, it's a good point with Iowa. I was simultaneously impressed with Iowa in some ways, and then really disappointed in others. And I have no idea how to walk away from that.
That's the Iowa experience. Their highs are highs, and their lows are lows.
They easily could have gone 3-0 as well as 0-3. So, but when you talk about their bullpen, they did get to Marcus Morgan. Let me pull up the score sheet there.
That is the flip side of it. Is they did do a great job of getting into the Iowa bullpen.
They tagged him for 4 runs in 3 innings. So,
the Python.
Yep. And Anthony Stefan's a big part of that. He makes you work for it. And you got Bobby Whalen batting 9th, who doesn't even play every day. We could talk about this Virginia team forever, but we need to get on with the show. Let's move on to the preview. This will be pretty brief, but we've got the list of all the games up there, and there's a lot to look up on this screen. Obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, we'll kind of explain some of the series that we're really looking forward to. But we'll start with Nick. What games are you looking forward to this weekend?
Oh man, when Micah and I do this, we try to not pick the basic answer, but I'm gonna probably pick actually.
Someone's got to pick the basic answer. To be fair,
but yeah, there's 4 of us on here now, so that helps a little bit, right?
That does help. So since I'll go first, I will pick the basic answer, and I will say Clemson, South Carolina, because we talked about it earlier. It's one of the better rivalries in college baseball. Usually these two play in midweek, and the fact that they're playing a 3-game series is really, really fun. Kind of like how ECU and UNC usually play in midweek. They played a 3-game series this year. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think we're going to get a lot of great hitting out of these two teams. So I can't wait to see that.
Are you going to any games this weekend at Wake?
I will be trying to go. What sucks is that their Friday game is at 4, and I don't know why, because people are still at work, and I'm still at work at 4 o'clock on a Friday.
I think it's because the weather. They try to get it with a little bit more warmth in the early parts of the year.
Yeah, it's the weather. So
I didn't realize people in South Carolina worked.
It's North Carolina.
Come on now, Jake. You knew that. Come on. You went to school, right?
I don't know how he got a degree, but apparently somebody gave him one. But
I will be trying to go to Friday, and I think I'll be trying to go to Sundays as well against Elon. So we will see.
Very nice. Micah, what's your series? You can't say Clemson, South Carolina.
Oh man. I think I got to go Akron Duke. Clearly it's the best weekend now. Honestly, I am going to go a little like off the cusp though, because I mean I kind of want to leave the two that I think people might go after. I really want to see this Florida State team again. I know it's not a series, but this Illinois, Michigan State, Western Michigan kind of, I wouldn't call it a gauntlet, right? But this is by far the most challenging, opponents that Florida State has seen. You're doing it at a neutral site at the old Greenville Drive ballpark. I really just want to see if this Florida State team, because if they
–
dominate this weekend, they will be ranked in my top 25 next week. I'm just being very transparent.
And by dominate, you mean sweep, right?
Correct. Sweep and not, like if they have to walk off all 3 games or something, I might be a little more hesitant to potentially put them in the top 25. But if they do what they've been doing the last couple weekends, this weekend, there's no reason why they're not a top 25 team at this point.
Yep. And like you said, you might be going to that Sunday game.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great to see. No, I have no problem with that. I'm excited that you might get the opportunity to go see some ACC baseball ahead of your trip, which begins when? Does it start in Clemson?
Starts next Wednesday. It does.
Yep. So really exciting to get Mike on the road. He might get a little bit of on the road a little early this weekend. Hopefully he gets a chance to go see the our Seminoles in against Western Michigan. Jake, you've had plenty of time to decide. And you're still looking. I can see it.
And I left you some golden ones here. So
yeah, you did leave me the golden ones, and I was looking up for like a cheese ball one. So I guess I'll just slide in here and go with the Vegas tournament. Pitt at Oklahoma. Oklahoma looked really good first weekend. Pitt looked really good second weekend. That's going to be a gritty game. Ohio State, they looked decent against Arizona State. It's really not a slack. I think the winner of that game, if Pitt wins that, I'll be very, very impressed. And then Cal is quickly kind of played themselves into being that fringe kind of top 25 team. It's a sneaky good Vegas lineup that, again, about a month ago when I saw Mike Farron and Mike Rooney were going to be there, I kind of laughed at it. And now I'm a little bit jealous that they're going to be out in Vegas going to those games.
I want to point something out, and I know this might be really weird, but it kind of bothers me. So that MLB Desert Invitational was also Ohio State and Cal, and all we did was sub BC or Pitt for BC in this one, and then Oklahoma, who shouldn't have been in the NCAA tournament, and Kansas State, who should have had their spot, who was in the MLB Desert Invitational. So, like, it's my only beef, because I was actually going to pick that, Jake, but my only beef with it is it's like we kind of saw half of this already. And I know, like, for the ACC side, it's a different ACC team. But it was like we got a little taste of what Ohio State is with, Boston College 2 weekends ago now. And same thing with Cal. So
Cal's good, though. The stuff we saw from Cal is that they're good.
BC beat them.
They did. They did. Yeah.
Cal is undefeated in non-ACC games.
So now you've left me to decide between the two other big series, whether it's Florida at Miami or Georgia Tech or Georgia. And I've got to say, in terms of star power, now you're making me choose between Daniel Cuvée and Drew Burress, and I don't appreciate that.
That was the plan all along, Monty. We know that article.
Yeah, we actually had a little text thread that we were like, let's see if we can make Monty pick his preseason freshman of the year right now, which series he wants to watch this week.
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to say Georgia Tech versus Georgia. Just the Georgia Tech, I want to see how their pitching faces Georgia. I think Miami's just not my favorite. I'm excited about this Georgia Tech team. So I'm going to pick Georgia Tech versus Georgia. It's going to be a fun series, hopefully, regardless of who ends up winning the series. Hopefully, it's 3 good games. So I'm going to go with that one. Jake, are you going to any games this weekend?
But yes, I'm going to be in Houston for LSU, Texas, Vandy, Houston, Louisiana, Lafayette, and Texas State. So no ACC teams.
So no ACC teams. So don't follow Jake this weekend if you're listening. But I'll be I'm deciding still between UMass and Virginia, but I think I'm going to be going to Williamsburg for Boston College and William & Mary, and then VCU and Boston College on Sunday. It's something called the Central Virginia Invitational, and yet it's not at one stadium. It's Boston College just kind of touring the Central Virginia area and other teams.
It's not at one stadium? It's not at the Diamond?
No, it's Sunday's at the Diamond, but so BC actually plays at Richmond on Friday at 1:30 in the afternoon, and then they're at Williamsburg at William & Mary on Saturday, and then back in Richmond at the Diamond on Sunday.
Because Central Connecticut State, who hasn't played a game, by the way, the only team in college baseball who hasn't, is also playing in this Central Virginia Classic, and I didn't realize they were traveling around either. That's weird.
Yeah. Okay. So when I was trying to determine what I was doing, I assumed they were all at the Diamond, and then when I started chasing it down, found out it wasn't. So I'm glad I found that out before games. But
how far is Williamsburg from Richmond?
Like 45 minutes. It might be closer to an hour, but I'm a little bit southeast, so I might.
Maybe the way Monty drives is 45 minutes.
I mean, I just flash my badge and go right through. So. Joking. Nobody knows my day job, so I'm good. Anyway.
I didn't know you had a badge for McDonald's that could get you through traffic.
Anyway, we are moving on. Quick discussion of our power rankings. You can see all of our individual power rankings. That includes everybody on this podcast, plus Noah, plus Grayson, and plus Cole. And we took all of our power rankings and added them together, and this is this week's power rankings. Duke remains at number 1. Virginia rises up 2 spots after their victory in Jacksonville to number 2. Wake Forest remains at number 3. Clemson drops following their loss to Kennesaw State at number 4. Florida State up to 5. Georgia Tech is 6, despite Nick and Micah ranking them at 10. North Carolina at 7, Pittsburgh at 8. They're in the top 8 of the ACC in the power rankings. NC State's up 2 after their series win in Hawaii, despite the debate Micah and Nick have already had on this show. Virginia Tech finally getting a little bit of respect. They're up 3 spots. Miami loses their midweek last week to Central Florida. They lose to Long Island, so they're 2-2 since the last power ranking. So apparently we dropped them 5 spots. I had them at number 7. We can get into that. BC drops 2. Notre Dame drops 1. Louisville remains last at 14. Micah, what are your thoughts?
So obviously we all have access to the spreadsheet. And so I was able to figure out Georgia Tech at 6 shocked me considering how Nick and I voted for them, right? And obviously I've been the Georgia Tech slander person. I was trying to figure out because, Florida State came in at 5. And so I was like, obviously they were ahead of Georgia Tech, but I was like, I'm trying to figure out, because I had Florida State, number 3 in mine. So I was like, I wonder if, someone was really down on Florida State. And I figured out who that was. And that was our good buddy Grayson. Grayson, if you're listening / watching, I want to have some words with you. Because, again, I've already preached on the whole Georgia Tech and just the quality of team they've played so far and question marks there. So I was shocked to see that he had Georgia Tech at 5 and Florida State at 10. So I guess I was surprised to see Georgia Tech above North Carolina when,
by
again.
1 point.
Yeah. And, I was just shocked to see that because, again, like I obviously had Georgia Tech a lot lower than most on this, but again, it was just kind of surprising to see, again, teams especially, too, that are in top 25s with NC State and North Carolina. And I mean, even Pitt has been, pretty dominant. And it was just, I was shocked to see Georgia Tech at 6, especially when you factor in Nick and I, again, there's only 6 of us voting. Math is really, really hard for me, guys. 7.
7.
7. When 2 of the 7 have them at 10, it's a little surprising to see them at 6.
Yeah, and people are doing the power rankings on how they feel the team performed in the last week and in response to where they were last week. So that, and some of that, I think that's what some people are doing. Some people might be doing a little bit different, but the way it is right now is it's a little confusing because, again, you don't know, somebody's high on somebody else. Somebody's seeing something about Georgia Tech that makes them feel they're better than Micah thinks they are. So you're going to have these kind of disparaging things, but then as the season goes, I think we're going to get a lot more in line. Nick, what do you think about NC State? What do you think about Miami dropping 5 spots?
Oh man, it doesn't really surprise me with NC State. I kind of had them at 8, and I know some people were kind of low on them after the VCU loss, but going up 2 is fine. I know they're kind of low right now, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, they're like I said, they still kind of feel like last year's team a little bit. And Miami down 5. That does surprise me. I only dropped them 1. I had them 6 last week, and now I have them 7. I don't know. I guess losing in the midweek, really, people don't like it when they lose to our teams lose to midweeks. So
Nick, I will say I'm a big reason for that. I'm going to be the first one to admit it.
I am.
No, I saw yours. You have them at 13, right?
Yeah, I had them at 6 the week before, and they dropped all the way to 13 for me. And I think, again, I may have punished losing the UCF and then losing an LIU game for me was just, I mean, UCF, for those who don't know, is currently the #1 RPI team in college baseball. So maybe UCF's is a lot better. Monty, or Jake, you're a Big 12. I think UCF might need to be, maybe they should be talked about a little bit more, maybe. But
no,
okay,
no.
Maybe not. But, I think just for me, the 2-2 week, with, again, we're talking about when we power rank these ACC teams, right? We're talking about teams that are every ACC team, right, has a winning record now. No, Louisville's gotten right, or at least they're
right? Louisville's 500.
Yep. Yeah, but everyone else
everyone's 500 or above, right? So when you're kind of nitpicking, right? And Miami was one of the few teams that didn't have a winning record last week. So for me, again, you got small sample sizes. I'll be the first one to admit that I maybe overreacted a little bit, but I'll just give everyone an idea of what I do for my power rings. I don't look what I did last week. I literally look and I go, okay, what have I seen so far in 2 weeks? And especially this early on. Now, again, as we go on further and further, I'll try to be a little more cognizant of what I had the week before, because obviously there's a reason why I voted it the way I did the week before. But we're 2 weeks in. So if I'm going to put a lot of weight in last week, I need to put a lot of weight into this week because there's only, again, 2 weeks worth of sample.
What made you because Notre Dame only split their series, what made you put Notre Dame over Miami?
I just think that LIU is really, really bad at baseball. If I'm just being
okay, fair
I
enough.
think, and again, like Gage Zeal struggling a little bit on Friday night has me very concerned as well. I mean,
yeah.
Monty joked about it last week on the show, and I'll be the first one to admit I watched a lot of Miami again this weekend because they're playing night games when everyone else is playing day games.
I actually do kind of love. I do love that being able to watch Miami or at least somebody at 7:00 because
correct.
Yeah, so that is nice.
So maybe that's part of it too. Is like I'm watching so much of it, and with the expectations I have, maybe I'm taking some of that. Where like I don't want to make myself sound like I'm not trying to be informed. I work a lot of baseball games at 3:00 on Fridays. If you play at 3 or 4 o'clock, I'm going to be going back and watching highlights and just box scoring. I'm not watching it live. I'm not feeling that emotion of, the 3-2 counts that you're getting and maybe guys battling stuff off. So maybe that's part of it too.
Don't listen to him, fans. He watches everything. You guys, he's just trying to be humble and provide, some modesty here. So, but Jake, what are your thoughts on our power rankings as we wrap this up?
Well, this might be the first time I've ever been within 2 of our official ranking. I feel like I had the most mean power ranking. Like I had Virginia at 1, Duke at 2. And then other than that, I think the only thing was I had, let me double check.
I'm looking at I'm looking at you and nothing was away from 2 of the mean. Everything was either spot on or within 1.
I think if I could go back and coincidentally, I didn't really watch Notre Dame or Boston. I watched Boston College, not really watched Notre Dame. I probably would have flipped them if I could do that right now. But again, I think we're kind of splitting hairs, like Micah said. A lot of this stuff is gonna. It wouldn't have affected it.
Yeah, there's 7 points between them, so you flipping them wouldn't have made a difference.
Yeah, Miami. I mean, they lost to LIU in not embarrassing fashion, but again, it was a lot more cause for concern than Clemson getting rocked on Friday. But then again, they were my kind of biggest follower too as well. But I'm excited to kind of see this weekend. This is almost like Judgment Day for a lot of these ACC teams as they roll into these SEC schools. We're going to find out who the best conference is.
Yep, and we'll be doing another preview or another recap show. It'll hopefully be our last recap show of non-conference because we'll have a little bit more condensed as ACC play starts and we get them playing each other. But we'll have this show is going to be available live or to be able to replayed on YouTube. It will also be going to Spotify under the Just Means Less podcast around the diamond. Whenever I get the audio over to Micah. We got a ton of content coming out.
He's going to get the audio over to him.
We have a special show on Thursday with our Clemson. I'm lagging.
Yeah, you're lagging like crazy. Money, I can take it. You're lagging like nobody's business. We couldn't hear any of that, but I can kind of fill in a little bit if you would need to. Just give me a thumbs up in a very laggy thing for like 5 seconds. Okay. So yeah, Thursday we're gonna have a special in the Palmetto State. We're gonna have our own Cinderella from South Carolina going with Cole from Clemson. I think that there's gonna be a lot of banter as those two fan bases really don't like each other, and those two writers kind of wear their hearts on their sleeves. Saturday we got the weekend rotation. Micah is gonna be posting this on the ACC Just Means Less as well, so look for that on Spotify. This has been Jake McKeever, Micah, and Nick from FHQ, or just FQ, sorry about that, and Monty with his lagginess. We'll see everybody next week.